If a fat person tells you that fat people are oppressed and your response is, well, I have insecurities too, there's a problem. One is an individual experience and the other is systematic oppression. And if you don't believe that fat people are oppressed, it's probably because you've never been fat enough to be oppressed by fat oppression. The pick me, I want to be oppressed too energy is getting really tiring.
It takes a whole lot of nerve calling someone a pick-me when you're a whole white woman telling people that you are oppressed because of your own choices. And saying if you don't think fat people are oppressed, you were never fat enough to notice it, is a nice way of trying to downplay the fact that most fat people don't think they are oppressed because of their size.
You are on my block list because you are obviously not an empathetic person. Can you imagine telling your 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10-year-old that they are obese and that they need to be put on a diet? And can you imagine your child being at school and not wanting to eat lunch and looking over every little itty-bitty lump and bump on their body, wishing they could cut it off with some scissors, hating themselves, and then by the time that they're a teenager, they're gonna starve themselves and, maybe, pass out because they don't have any food in their body?
So, first of all, you can slow the heck down. You went from a doctor telling you that your child is obese to that child starving themselves in less than 10 seconds. Just telling your child that they are overweight doesn't immediately give them an ED.
Food is fuel. Food is energy. You need food to survive. It's not just, oh, I'm hungry, I want to eat. Oh, I'm fat and I eat everything in sight. Shut up. You obviously know nothing. And your comment about Americans being too sensitive, fuck off. This has nothing to do with me being an American. This has so much more to do with the blatant fat phobia that's coming out of your fucking mouth. I cannot imagine telling a child that they are fat and that they need to lose weight. They are growing. They are small human beings growing. And you said that it's parents' fault that their kid is obese. No, it is not. No, it is not. Whether you raise your child, I think raising your child to eat everything on their plate is inhumane and can also lead to a life of eating disorders.
But letting your child consume all the processed food they want, which can lead to health problems and bad habits into adulthood, is perfectly humane? Got it.
But no matter what you choose to feed your child, they are growing. They need that, no matter what. Obesity can also be genetic, and there are lots of people who have disabilities and disorders and things wrong with them. Or there's just straight up people who have a hard time losing weight and they can't do it. Okay, it's not... You think this is a game?
Well, for a second there it seemed like you were playing the time-honored fat activist game of, how many different ways can we rationalize being obese in a way that takes responsibility off of us?
Obesity can also be genetic,
and there are lots of people who have disabilities.
It's just straight up people who have a hard time losing weight and they can't do it.
So? Yes?
You think fat people don't know that they're fat? You think we haven't heard everything in the book? But that shit that was coming out of your mouth about children? What is wrong with you? That child is going to grow up to have eating disorders if you treat them like that. Eating disorders, and they will hate themselves, and they will live a life of misery, anger, depression, and resentment. They will resent you. Just let your kid be a goddamn kid. If they want to eat chicken nuggets for every meal growing up, at least they're eating. At least your kid has something to eat. Stop it. Just fucking stop it.
If someone's bar for their child's health is that they are just eating, then they are a terrible parent. Telling your child to eat healthy and giving them the tools to do so is what responsible parents do. Not letting their kids eat chicken nuggets and candy for every meal with the rationale that, oh well, food is food. At least they don't have an ED.
Why is skinny a compliment and fat is an insult? Not everybody wants to be skinny. Well, honey, there's not $1 billion industry made to prevent people from being skinny. When people go, wow, I'm so skinny, people don't reply and go, no, you're not skinny, you're beautiful. Your personal dislike about your own body does not eradicate the fact that skinny is status quo. It does not erase the fact that the entire world was made to benefit thin people. Being skinny is seen as a compliment because it comes with an immense amount of privilege. Being skinny is a compliment because you can wear things just like Kendall Jenner does and be called a fashionista simply because you're skinny. It is a compliment because you don't get told that the world is not meant for you. It is a compliment because you don't get ignored by medical professionals just because of your weight. You don't have to like the thin body that you are in, but learn to differentiate between your own self-perception and society's perception of thin bodies.
First of all, you're wrong. There is a multi-billion, if not a trillion-dollar industry set on making skinny people obese and obese people more obese. They're called the fast food and processed food industries. Second, the world is made to accommodate skinny people because being skinny is what should be the status quo and normal. There's no shame in gaining weight because the entire culture in the United States lends to the overconsumption of food, but that doesn't mean the world should change itself to make obesity the new normal. Third, I could go into a long rant about how beauty standards and how any era's perfect body is almost always the body that is most difficult to achieve, but I'll summarize and say, being skinny is considered a compliment partially because, for a lot of people, it takes a lot of effort to live in the US and remain small. It's unfortunate, but true.
This commenter says, fun fact, the cadavers they practice on will never be fat people because being obese disqualifies the body from being donated to science. I didn't believe this was true and looked it up, and now I'm horrified. This is from OHSU. I live in Oregon. This is our giant university hospital that does a lot of research, and here they say things that can disqualify you are, quote, an unhealthy body mass index below 100 pounds or above 200 pounds. Mayo Clinic, things that can disqualify you. The body is not acceptable for anatomical study, i.e. extremely emaciated or extremely obese. So the reason we all are forced to lose weight and are discriminated against are because doctors refuse to learn on fat bodies. But sure, medical fat phobia totally doesn't exist, right? Literally the entire medical system.
So obese people can't donate their bodies to science, at least at most research institutes, because being obese is a risk factor for a lot of diseases. Like, a lot. And when doing research with cadavers, researchers want to control as many variables as possible within their subjects, which includes making sure the body was healthy in life. That's all. It's not a personal affront to you.
I'm not going to stitch the video because I'm not trying to get into back and forth drama, but I would just still like to make the point based on an interaction I had earlier that if you are a small fat person and you find a piece of straight size clothing that works for your body, while that is great for you, it doesn't make it a plus size recommendation just because you are plus size. And if a bunch of people are telling you that in your comments, you should probably listen instead of just getting defensive. I was talking with one of my mutuals the other day about how they're finding it almost impossible to find a plain tank top in size 4X that isn't either really ill-fitting or really expensive. So yes, while small fat people absolutely have a place in the fat liberation movement and the plus size community, it is harmful when you center yourselves in plus size discussions because you have some of the most privilege. If you only care about or you're only talking to people about your size or smaller, just say that. People do every day. We call them fat folks. It's great if you're finally ready to have these conversations, but you've got to listen.
I don't understand why it is so difficult to ignore information that doesn't pertain to you. But from what I've seen in the fat acceptance community, it's really frickin' hard. If someone gave a recommendation for a clothing item that is not in your size, move on. And to imply that someone is fatphobic, like the skinnies are, for simply recommending some clothes that don't fit every single person on the fatness spectrum just goes to show how shallow your so-called oppression is.
Diet culture, or personal trainers, say take progress photos to stay on track. What they're actually doing is perpetuating the lie, that us humans are healthier when we are smaller, which is simply not true. These transformation photos also demonize the before photo as someone that is not good enough just as they are. What does this content say about somebody that looks like the before photo? It says you are not good enough as you are, and I had to go to extreme lengths to not look like you, and I'm being celebrated for that.
No. That's your selfish, twisted interpretation of it.
Piggybacking onto fat phobia and body shaming. This content also regularly focuses around women, that a woman's primary focus in life should be to take up as little space as possible, masked as determination or discipline. Lastly, these photos belittle exercise simply down to a weightless tool, but it is so much more than that.
I'm genuinely curious if these people find all before and after pictures toxic, or just the ones where people lose weight. What if someone gains muscle? What if someone gets excess skin removal surgery? Or what if someone gets facial reconstruction surgery? Are they going to be just as outraged that people are demonizing the bodies with deformities, loose skin, and no tone? I wonder.